Hello, my friends. Welcome to another day in knowledge, talking about ancient Greeks. On our ancient Greek civilization chart, we have our jobs, religion. We've been talking about city-states. We'll talk a little bit about leaders today. And we've been talking about contributions. Remember, a contribution is something that was done a long time ago in a civilization that was passed down from generation to generation and is still used today. One contribution that we talked about already were the Olympic Games that we still do today. In our last lesson, we talked about democracy. Democracy is another important contribution from ancient Greece. Remember, a democracy allowed the people of a city-state or country to have a voice and an opinion in their government. One of the leaders, democracy was born in Athens, and one of the leaders in ancient Athens that helped create democracy was Pericles, who I have a picture of right here. This is a statue of Pericles. To help us remember how important he was in creating democracy and contributing that to our world, I'm going to put his picture right here under leaders. There we go. Today, my friends, we're going to move away from ancient Greece for a little while, and we're going to talk about another place nearby. I'm going to go show you where that place is at on a map. Today, we are going to learn about the Persian Empire. On our map, we can see Greece in yellow. The Persian Empire is shown in green. The Persian Empire was a huge empire and one of the most powerful in the world. It was led by a man named King Darius, who we will learn about in our read aloud today. First, though, we'll go over some of the vocabulary words that we'll see. Purposely. Purposely means to do something with deliberate planning. Lessa purposely wore her favorite dress for her first day of school. Mercy. Mercy is an act of compassion or kindness. Andrea begged for mercy so that her friends would not tickle her. Avoid. Avoid means to steer clear of or to keep away from. Eating a well-balanced diet helps you avoid getting sick. Marathon. A marathon is a foot race measuring a little more than 26 miles. Marathon can also be used to describe any long-distance race or endurance contest. Runners from around the world compete in the Boston Marathon in Massachusetts each spring. Tribute. A tribute is a gift or compliment given to honor the contributions of a particular person or group. We are going to learn about an important tribute that was given to someone in ancient Greece in our read aloud today. Try to think about a person that you would like to give a tribute to. Do you think that you would like to receive a tribute from someone? Why do you think receiving a tribute from someone would be a memorable experience? The Persians are coming! The terrifying news raced through Athens like a rapidly spreading fire. The very name of the Persians meant terror to all the Greeks. And now, King Darius had sent an army of Persian foot soldiers and cavalry, which means soldiers on horseback, to punish the Athenians. Darius was angry that Athens had helped other Greek city-states fight against Persia. Remember, our Greek city-states were mostly independent, but they did help each other during emergencies like invasions. A fleet of 600 ships had brought as many as 20,000 experienced Persian soldiers to a beach about 26 miles from Athens, near a wide, flat plain called Marathon. "There are not enough of us to face them," moaned an Athenian army general. "Besides, no one can beat Persian soldiers." But another Athenian general, a man named Miltiades, answered, "The Persians fight for a king most of them have never seen, and who cares nothing for them. We fight for our freedom, and for the freedom of our children. That must be worth something in battle." Now in those days, the Athenians had 10 elected generals, plus another military leader called a polemarch. The polemarch was not a general, but he represented the Athenian government during military discussions. Callimachus, the polemarch at the time, gathered along with the 10 generals, including Miltiades, to create a plan of defense. One of the generals said, "The plain of Marathon is a perfect place for the Persians to attack us. There is room for their horsemen to move around us, and there will be nowhere for us to go to avoid their well-organized soldiers fighting on foot. A plain is a large, flat area of land, so the generals know the Persians can fit many horsemen in this large, flat area." Another general suggested, "Let us send our fastest runner to Sparta. The Spartans are the greatest fighters in Greece. If they will help us, we might have a chance." But it was 150 miles from Athens to Sparta, and some of the journey included rugged mountains and streams. The generals knew they would need a runner who was fast and strong. "Phidippides is our man," the generals agreed. "No one in Athens can touch him for speed over a long distance." So they sent swift-footed Phidippides to call on the Spartans for help. Then the generals called together all 10,000 Athenian men of fighting age. In every Athenian home there were tearful goodbyes. At last the Athenians started off towards the plain of Marathon, about 26 miles away. Meanwhile, the Persians were camped on the beach near the edge of the plain. The Persian commander in charge told his men, "We will win such a great victory here for King Darius that the rest of the Greeks will simply surrender to us." The Persians were so confident, their commander took no special steps to guard his camp, other than sending the cavalry off on their horses to search the area just a few times a day. Why do you think the Persian army was so confident that they would win the fight? As all of this was happening, the strong legs and powerful heart of the Athenian messenger, Phidippides, carried him towards Sparta. Phidippides ran as he had never run before, stopping only a few times to drink from streams or rivers. He ran for almost 3 days until he reached Sparta and the 2 Spartan kings. "You must come with your armies at once, or it will be too late," he exclaimed. To his horror, the Spartan kings answered, "We cannot leave before tomorrow. Sparta is in the middle of a religious holiday honoring the gods, and our law says we must finish before we can leave to fight." At this time, the Spartans were celebrating a 9-day festival called Carneia to honor Apollo as the protector of their cattle. "By then, the battle will be over, and we will have lost," Phidippides exclaimed. He set out again to carry the news to the Athenians that they would be on their own. As it turned out, this was not true. As the Athenians marched toward Marathon, 1,000 Greeks from another city
having heard the news, joined them. Together the 11,000 Greeks marched over the mountains to the plain of Marathon. As they did so, Pheidippides arrived to say, "The Spartans cannot help us." The generals were horrified. "The Persian army is much bigger than ours, with many more soldiers," one pointed out fearfully. "We should surrender and beg for mercy," cried a second. "There will be no mercy," said Miltiades, the general who had spoken boldly back in Athens. "The Persians are here because we helped other Greeks strike back against them. The Persians will not stop until they have destroyed us." Do you think the Athenians will choose to surrender to the Persians or to fight for their freedom? The 10 generals voted. Should they surrender or should they attack? Each side won 5 votes. Then Miltiades remembered something. Callimachus was allowed to vote too. Miltiades told him, "The decision rests with you. You will decide whether we surrender and agree to serve the Persians, suffering all that that will bring, or whether we will fight and live as free people." Callimachus trusted Miltiades. "What do you think?" he asked. Miltiades answered, "If we do not fight, the people of Athens will be frightened too, and will surrender the city to the enemy. All of Greece will follow. But if we attack before fear sweeps through our camp, I believe that we will win." Callimachus replied, "Then let us fight." Luck was with them. The Persian commander had sent his cavalry off again to make sure no other Greek armies were approaching. While the horsemen were away, the Greeks spread out in a wide line. The Greek generals purposely put more men at either end of their wide line, leaving the middle as the weakest part. Then, shouting a loud battle cry, the Greeks charged. The Persians were startled. No one ever ran toward them. Nevertheless, they moved forward toward the Greeks. "Look how these weak fools have left their middle," laughed the Persian leader. But the laugh was on him, for just as the Greeks had planned, the Persians moved to the middle first and pushed back the Greek line. But then the stronger Greek forces on the edges circled around and attacked from the sides, catching the Persians between them. The Persians, confused and unable to defend themselves, turned and ran for their ships, with the Greeks hot on their heels. In fact, the Greeks captured 7 Persian ships before the Persians could even reach them. The other Persians sailed away. "We have beaten the mighty Persians," the Greeks told one another in amazement. Then they remembered their families, waiting for the news at home. Legend says that Pheidippides proudly volunteered. "I shall carry the news." Remember, Pheidippides was their fastest runner, who had already run all the way to Sparta and back. He set out again, leaving the scene of the battle at Marathon, and as he reached the gates of Athens, the people gathered around him. He was just able to gasp out one word: "Victory!" Then his great heart, which had carried him to Sparta and back, finally gave out. Pheidippides fell dead at the gates of Athens. In tribute to Pheidippides, the Greeks measured the distance he had run from Marathon to Athens, and those 26 miles became the distance of their long-distance races. Remember, a tribute is a gift or compliment given to honor and remember the contributions of a particular person or group. Why did the Greeks want to pay tribute to This is why today we call a long-distance race a marathon, in memory of Phidippides and all those who fought for freedom on the plains of Marathon. Today, the word marathon can mean a 26-mile race or any long-distance race or endurance contest.
All right, my friends, I have some questions for you about what we just learned about. My first question is, why did King Darius send an army to Athens? Right. He was upset that the Athenians had helped other city-states fight against Persia. How did the Greek leaders decide whether they would fight or surrender Athens to Persia? Right. Because they are a democracy, they voted, and Callimachus had to be the tiebreaker in that vote that decided they would fight. Why did the Athenian generals send Phidippides all the way to Sparta? Right. They wanted to ask the Spartans for help, but the Spartans couldn't help them. So how were they able to win? Even without the Spartans' help and with their smaller army, how were the Greeks able to win the Battle of Marathon? Remember, they tricked the Persian army by having very few men in the middle and lots of men on the sides. So they tricked the Persian army into fighting their weaker middle section, and then the sides attacked. And that's how they were able to win the Battle of Marathon. All right, my friends. Why was a tribute given to Phidippides? Right, Phidippides ran all the way from Marathon back to Athens to let everyone know that we had won the Battle of Marathon. But it was such a long way for him to run, and it was so hard on him that he died after he made it into the city gates. What contribution came from the ancient Greek Battle of Marathon against the Persian? What modern day thing that we still have came from that battle? In memory of Phidippides' long run, 26-mile run, just over 26 miles, we named a race after him. So when people say they are running a marathon, that means they are running a race that was named after Phidippides and his run all the way from Marathon to Athens. All right, my friends, let's take a look at our chart. I've added some things to our chart. We have got jobs, which we've already talked about. In ancient Greece, people farmed olive trees. People were shepherds and took care of sheep. And they were seafarers who caught fish and traded on the water. I've added to our religion section. This is a picture of Mount Olympus, where the ancient Greeks believed the gods lived. Here we have a picture of the 12 gods of Olympus. This is a picture of the first Olympic Games, which were held in honor of Zeus, the king of all the gods. And on the bottom, I've added a picture of our Parthenon. Remember, the Parthenon was built in Athens to honor the goddess Athena. Under our city-states, we've learned about Sparta, which was known for its warriors and focused on war, and Athens, named after Athena, that was known for the arts, and it was where democracy was born. Here we have a leader of Athens who helped create democracy, and under our contributions, we have modern-day Olympics, which are no longer used to honor Zeus. We have the poems and artwork of the ancient Greeks and the architecture. So this is a picture of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. that looks very similar to the Parthenon. So even though this building style was popular in ancient Greece thousands of years ago, we still use that style of architecture today in things like the Lincoln Memorial. This is a picture of the Council of Athens, to show democracy. Democracy is considered to be the most important contribution from ancient Greece to our modern world today. I'm going to add one more picture to our contribution column today. And it is a picture of a modern day marathon. Remember, a modern day marathon is a race that honors Phidippides' run from Marathon to Athens to let the Athenians know that the Greeks had won the Battle of Marathon. I have to cover up our democracy just a little bit. We're running out of room on our contributions column. We have a lot of contributions from ancient Greece. All right, my friends. We have one more thing to do on this assignment. Go ahead and open the PDF that's attached. And I'm going to jump onto my computer so I can show you what to do.
Okay, go ahead and open up the PDF that's attached to this assignment. When you have that open in Kami, it should look like this. We have talked a little bit about formatting stories as somebody, wanted, but, so, and then. We did this with the Great Wall of China and how it was built. We are going to use this format to retell the story that we talked about today, the Battle of Marathon. In the Battle of Marathon, the Athenian generals wanted what? What did they want to help defeat the much larger Persian army? They wanted help from the Spartans. Remember, the Spartans were focused on war and were the toughest warriors in Greece. So they wanted help from the Spartans to defeat the Persian army. The Athenian generals wanted help from the Spartans to defeat the Persian army. But something happened. What happened when Phidippides asked the Spartans for help? Go ahead and fill that in on but on your own. The Athenian generals wanted help from the Spartans to defeat the Persian army, and they sent Phidippides to go ask for that help. But what happened? Go ahead and tell me here. So the Greeks used all of their battle strategies on the plain of Marathon. And what happened? What was the fate or the outcome of this battle? What happened at the end? When you have finished your somebody wanted but so then planning guide, I want you to scroll down and turn it into a complete paragraph. Remember, paragraphs are how writers break stories into pieces to make them easier to read. You are going to take the information in this planning guide and write it in a paragraph. I want to see 2 or 3 sentences that are with all of the information taken from here and written here as a paragraph. Remember, when we write a paragraph, we indent the first line, or we have a space before we start writing that is not there on the following lines. That's hard to do with a text box. So if you are using a text box to complete this assignment, don't worry so much about the indents. Just worry about taking all of this information that you filled out in your somebody wanted but so then chart and turning it into 2 or 3 full sentences in a paragraph. When you are done with that, go ahead and turn it in, and you are done with knowledge today.